Humanity was never meant to matter, at least not according to the Galactic Concord, which had catalogued thousands of species and found us painfully ordinary, too divided to unite, too emotional to stabilize, too primitive to survive the long arc of cosmic evolution. And so they labeled us the quiet ones, a footnote in a galaxy full of brilliance, something to observe and eventually forget. But everything changed when the Carthun came, not as conquerors or diplomats, but as an absence that swallowed existence itself, an unknowable force that consumed stars, erased planets, and silenced entire civilizations without leaving even echoes behind. And for the first time in their long history, the conquered panicked, fracturing under fear and choosing survival over principle by abandoning their outer systems, including ours, as a buffer to slow the inevitable. Yet before humanity could even understand what was happening, alien ships filled our skies, not to welcome us but to warn us. To evacuate or be erased in a sterilization meant to deny the Carthun further resources. And that might have been the end of our story if the darkness hadn't arrived first, tearing through space like a wound in reality, devouring fleets that had stood unchallenged for millennia, turning the Concord's most advanced weapons into meaningless flashes before silence. And in that moment, when even the oldest species chose retreat, humanity, fractured, frightened, and unprepared, did something no one predicted, something no simulation had ever accounted for. We stayed not because we believed we could win, but because we refused to accept that survival meant surrender. And so the chaos began. Nations that had spent centuries distrusting one another shared data without hesitation. Rival powers coordinated strikes in seconds. Scientists abandoned caution to test theories in real time. And civilians became part of the fight in ways no military doctrine could have imagined, turning satellites into kinetic weapons, using orbital debris as traps, overloading communication networks to create unpredictable signal interference that disrupted Carthun movement, even weaponizing nuclear arsenals, not as blunt force, but as carefully timed distortions in space-time that created momentary blind spots. And though none of it should have worked against an enemy that defied understanding, that was precisely why it did. Because the Carthuan had evolved or been designed to overcome patterns, to consume logic, to erase predictable resistance. But humanity was not predictable. We contradicted ourselves constantly, adapted mid-action, broke our own strategies as often as we followed them, and in doing so became something the Carthuan could not easily process, a variable that refused to stabilize, and slowly, impossibly, the advance of the darkness slowed, not stopped but disrupted, delayed in ways the conquered had never achieved. And as alien observers watched from the safety of distant systems, they saw a species they had dismissed as insignificant hold the line, longer than empires that had ruled for eons, not through superior technology or unified perfection, but through raw, chaotic persistence, through a refusal to give up even when logic demanded it. And in that defiance, something even more unexpected happened, something that would be debated for generations. The Carthun hesitated, not retreating, not defeated, but pausing as if confronted with something new, something not worth the cost or perhaps not worth understanding. And then, as suddenly as they had arrived, they withdrew, slipping back into whatever void had birthed them, leaving behind a broken but surviving Earth and a galaxy forced to confront an uncomfortable truth, that the weakest species among them had succeeded where they had failed, not because humanity was stronger, wiser, or more advanced, but because when faced with annihilation we chose to resist in ways that made no sense, ways that broke every model of survival the universe seemed to follow. And in the aftermath, as the conquered cautiously returned, they no longer saw humanity as quiet or insignificant, but as something far more dangerous and far more valuable, a species that could not be predicted, could not be easily broken, and could not be trusted to follow the rules of extinction, a species that, when the universe decided it should disappear, simply refused, and in that refusal reshaped its place among the stars forever.